Rav Matasyahu Solomon went to Lakewood to become the Mashgiach of Lakewood, one of the biggest and most famous yeshivas in the world. The first Elul that he was there, he taught Siddur. Now, you may think, if you're talking about one of the greatest institutions of Jewish scholarship in the world, why would you have to teach the words of the Siddur? Part of the answer is that almost all the words of the Siddur are quotations from the Tanakh. And that means they are either dictated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu or inspired by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they have much greater depth than just the dictionary meaning or the translation meaning in your English translation would indicate. And the mitzvah of this time is Tefilah. We spoke about this once already. It's quite interesting that in recommendations for doing extra work serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu during this time, so as perhaps to earn extra merit, in the sources that I saw, extra Torah learning is not mentioned. But there definitely is extra Tefilah. The slichos are extra, and the days of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur are filled with Tefilah. So Tefilah is really the high point of the performance during this period of time, and therefore, knowing what the words mean is an important contribution. Now, what the words mean? The words are infinitely deep, and there are many, many commentaries, and each one approaches the text with a particular set of priorities in mind. And when I translate it for you, I'm no different. I'm interested in grammar. I'm interested in machshava, philosophical thinking about it. And to a certain extent, the extent that I'm able, I'm interested in Kabbalistic ideas. So I'll just give you in this hour an introduction to some of the words of the Shemona Esrei, so that hopefully on Monday evening when we start, you'll have some extra understanding to bring with you to the tefillahs that we're going to say. Usually in the holidays, you have the first three blessings and the last three blessings of the Shemona Esrei, and in the middle you have a special crafted passage which deals with the holiday. But that's not the way it is on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. On Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, the extra, a great deal of extra material about the holiday is put into the third blessing. The blessing of Kedushas Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is holy. And that's unusual, that's unique. So we're going to start with that. And the structure of it is, the middle of 65, you have the first sentence of that blessing. You are holy, your name is holy, your holiness praise you every day. That we say every day. And then comes the set of paragraphs describing the unique character of Rosh Hashanah. And each paragraph begins with the words in Hebrew, and so, or in English, uvechein. And the commentators point out that this is a quotation from Esther when Mordechai tells her that she has to go into the king and plead on behalf of the Jewish people who are in danger. And she has an objection to the whole plan, and Mordechai reiterates that it's impossible to avoid. So she says, okay, if that's the case, you all should fast for me 3 days and nights. And then, uvechein, as a result of that, together with that, I'll go into the king, and what it'll be will be. So, since she's going into the king, and we are also standing before the king, it's appropriate to quote what she said. But more than that, as we will see, it's really an application of this first sentence. The first sentence describes HaKadosh Baruch Hu's holiness, and all of the rest of the paragraphs are implications of his holiness, applications and expressions of his holiness. So the uvechein links those special paragraphs of Rosh Hashanah to the introductory sentence, which we say every day of the year. Now, I don't know in the English where the word to is coming from. Also, I don't know why they put that there. And indeed, in the commentary, it doesn't explain why they put the word two in, so I just don't know how to explain that. So, Hashem, our God, instill your awe upon all your works. But first of all, the subject here is, here, you want to copy the text? Page 65. It's not limited to Jews. Indeed, it certainly includes all of mankind. Maybe it goes further than that, maybe not. And the word that the commentators here translate as awe, in Hebrew, pachad carries the connotation of fear. There's another word in Hebrew which is more directly related to awe, that's yira. Yira can mean fear or awe, or both of them. Pachad is more a matter of fear, but here the fear is what interacting with His greatness may do to us. We're not talking about fear of assault or fear of famine and so forth and so on. So maybe it's attached also to His greatness. And greatness comes in many different dimensions. So here I think the Uvechein is telling us that the greatness we're talking about is the greatness of His holiness. You are holy, and therefore instill awe for your holiness in all of your creatures, on your works. And then it says, they translate as dread. Here it says v'yiraucha, which is a word in normal Hebrew, which is more a matter of awe, all of your works. And all of them shall prostrate themselves before you. Now, prostration is a very symbolic action. When we greet one another, if we trace the modes of greeting historically, they are expressions of peace. And the expression of peace is by showing that I do not threaten you in any way. You shake with your right hand, because the right hand is where you would hold a weapon. Or you raise your hand in peace. There's no weapon in my hand. When you prostrate yourself, you're putting yourself totally at the mercy of the other person. Your face is down, you don't see him, and your hands and feet are spread out. You're totally helpless, totally vulnerable. That's a way of saying that I hold nothing back, and I'm not prepared to oppose it any way. It's a demonstration, an expression of loyalty because of your holiness. Now, there are many reasons why someone might declare loyalty, and many reasons why people might stand in awe of power, of superior knowledge, who knows what. But here it's particularly an expression of holiness. But we are asking on Rosh Hashanah, an anniversary of the creation of the world, in a certain sense, that the fact that you, the Holy One, created the world, become the consciousness of everything in the world, and everything in the world should relate to you in terms of the consciousness of that aspect of you, whose greatness we will, to a certain extent, appreciate. And as the commentators point out, if we're asking Him to instill it upon us, it means we're asking for something we can't do on our own. Otherwise, it would be our responsibility, and we would have to work on it on our own. No, we're asking for an appreciation that's beyond our ability to directly create for ourselves. The way in which we manage it is by to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give it to us. Our asking is also a method of bringing it about, but it's bringing it about indirectly. And then, let them all become a single society, unified. The world should be unified. It's created to be unified. In deeper Sfarim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absolute unity, as you all know. We know from the Shema. The world should reflect His unity. Mankind, having free will, can choose to do this or not. But we are hoping, we're praying for the day when mankind will actually embody this. An example of the effect of embodying it, I've mentioned this to you, but it applies here directly, is the difference between the generation of the flood, the generation of the dispersion, Tower of Babel, the generation of the flood's crimes were arguably much worse than the crimes. I'm sorry, not as bad as the crimes of the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel, say our sources, was dedicated to fighting with the Kodesh Baruch, just fighting, opposing. The transgressions of the generation of the flood were, we take murder. Murder is usually a matter of anger, and it's a crime of passion. Something happened that you can't abide. That's not premeditated anti-theology, anti-God. Same with sexual offenses or with idol worship, and even with theft. In the case of the generation of the Tower of Babel, it was a dedicated effort to oppose God. Why then was their punishment less severe? And the answer that's given in some places is because they were unified. And the critic says, wait a minute, Rabbi, they were unified in doing evil. So, how does that work? Why would that be a merit for them? And the answer is, even though they were unified in doing evil, their unification gave them a certain merit because they expressed Hashem's unity in the world. And then I want to add to this what the Or HaChaim says. If you look into the verses and you ask what their crime was, without relying on the truthful report of the oral tradition, just look into the verses, you can see a very simple, clear, direct description. Kodesh Baruch Hu said, when he blessed Adam and Chava, be fruitful and multiply on the earth, and fill the earth. Milu es haaretz. Fill the earth. You can't fill the earth if you're all living in one valley. They said, lest we be dispersed, to prevent our being dispersed, let's live in the valley and build a tower and unify ourselves around that. That means when the Kodesh Baruch Hu said, fill the earth, they said, no, we're not doing that. So what did the Kodesh Baruch Hu do? He destroyed their unity. That is to say, he deprived them of the way in which they were unified by having a single language. Of course, you can have bilateral dictionaries and you can learn to talk to one another, but it requires an effort. And then you have different cultures, and you have to make an effort to create unity. So the idea is that unity, which was given in the beginning, that they only had one language, now you're going to have to create it on your own to create that unity. When you do that, you'll be embodying the message of God's unity in the world, and that will be a very great merit. So we're asking, in appreciating God's holiness, the first thing is unification. To do your will wholeheartedly. For as we know, Hashem our God, that dominion is yours. That means rulership. Shaltan means the ability to rule over. Strength is in your right hand. Your name inspires awe over all that you have created. So they're going to look at you and they're going to think, rulership, shilta, it belongs to you. You are really an authority. It's not just having power. It comes from your holiness. Your holiness represents that which is the highest ideal, the most perfect. What else could you do with your life? What could you do with your life to be better than dedicating your life to relating to and bringing into existence the greatest perfection? So it's not just a matter of having power. It's that your holiness gives you the authority to rule, and we're praying for the day in which people will appreciate that and then dedicate themselves to you out of that appreciation. That's the first paragraph, and as I said, it has nothing to do with the Jewish people. It has to do with all of mankind and maybe even the rest of the creation as well. We're together so far? Okay, let's take a look at the next paragraph. And so, also, as an aspect of applying your holiness, grant honor to your people, praise to those who revere you, and good hope to those who seek you, and eloquent speech to those who hope to you. So let's take these apart. Honor and praise are a matter of how you relate to others. You have honor because other people honor you. You have praise because other people praise you. these two petitions are, we should have a certain relationship to the rest of the world where they will appreciate who we are and what we are. And now, to the Jewish group, hope and speech, because we are appreciated by the outside, we have to present ourselves to them in a way that carries the inspiration that's appropriate for that honor and for that praise. And speech means it's not just that we accomplish for ourselves and they honor our accomplishments. It's different between, let's say, a great basketball team and a great teaching staff. Basketball team plays basketball for themselves and earns money for themselves. The teaching staff teaches others and helps them grow and develop. So here, the speech that we have is a speech that we'll use when they are praising us and they are honoring us. We'll use our speech to be able to elevate them. This is what Isaiah the prophet said when he said we should be an Or Lagoyim, a light unto the nations. Yes, we have a great deal to teach them. And when the pasuk says, Hashem, the whole earth will be filled with knowledge of God, it's explained to us the whole world, non-Jews as well, will have knowledge of Hashem, and that knowledge will include our special position, and they'll appreciate us for that reason. And therefore they will praise us and honor us, and we have to respond to that. Don't just sit in glory and bask in the fact that we're greater than they are. No, that puts a responsibility on us, that we should use our eloquent speech to be able to elevate them. Now, here it talks about joy to your land and joy to your city. It's very interesting that here we're talking about a geography. Of course, the land and the city means the people who live in the land, the people who live in the city. But here the people are designated by a geography. Later they're going to be designated by personal qualities. But here it's by geography. The idea of your land and your city is closeness to Hashem. The city of Jerusalem is described in halacha, in the verses in the Torah which describe halacha, as lifnei Hashem. The second tithe of the produce that you take in years 1, 2, 4, and 5 has to be eaten before Hashem, and before Hashem is Yerushalayim. So it's the designation of his city is the designation of a place where you're in Hashem's presence. The rest of the land of Israel, like the Ramban explains, is like the palace of the king. He has a throne room, so you're not totally in front of him when you're in the rest of the land of Israel. But on the other hand, you're living in the palace. You're in the king's premises, the king's private domain, so to speak, as opposed to the rest of the country. So both of them, what's generating the joy is being that closely related to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the first two things that we have in this paragraph. And then we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give, okay, they translated it in poetical terms, which is not bad. In the literal words, it's the flourishing, the blooming and blossoming of the horn of David. Now, a horn is a horn animal, and tzemach is a plant word, a word for plants, and this refers to the coming of the Mashiach. And the commentators say that the Mashiach could come in many different ways. One, imitating plant growth, which is slow and gradual. And the other is a blast on a horn, which can be immediate and cataclysmic. Well, you put the two of them together. It's what in English your style teacher will tell you must never do. It's to mix metaphors. This is a mixed metaphor, but the idea is to communicate both ideas. So now we're asking for the coming of the Mashiach, which is the crown on the gladness of the land and the city, your servant, and preparing a ner, a light, for the Mashiach again, speedily in our days. And of course, just as we have eloquent speech to talk, so we have a light to shine. And that, I think, it could be taken as a direct reference to the verse in Isaiah. There will be a light into the nations. We will talk to them, and we will show them in their experience things which express HaKadosh Baruch Hu's holiness, which is what they appreciate that we are supposed to do. That's this paragraph. Now, another uvechein. So it's a third idea. And so, the righteous will see and be glad, and the upright will exult. That means to be of high spirit. And the devout will be mirthful, full of laughter. Mirth in English carries a somewhat negative connotation, not in Hebrew. It will be full of laughter, with glad song. So here's what I promised you. Here, the joy of human beings is described in terms of their personal qualities, not their geography. These are very special people. These are the greatest of the Jewish population. The righteous, upright, the devout, tzaddikim, and chasidim, which is we have in the regular Shemona Esrei, and Yeshorim, those who are straight, upright. They will be joyful. So it comes now that this is a third paragraph. In other words, the general joy of the people, the general joy of being close to Kodesh Baruch Hu, coming back to the land of Israel, and so on and so on, isn't yet enough for the greatest among them, for the greatest among us to be overwhelmed with joy. They have to see more development in the people than just being glad to be close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's a big, very big spiritual accomplishment, to rejoice in being close to Kodesh Baruch Hu. But they have to see more than that in order to get to this point of joy. The text does not tell us what more there has to be, but clearly there does have to be more. And now, by the way, I'm quoting here largely from the Mamar al-Chochmah of the Ramchal, who goes through this passage word by word and explains it. And look what the result is. This is within the same paragraph. Iniquity will close its mouth. Iniquity means transgression, evil. All wickedness will evaporate, like smoke. Wickedness, not the wicked people, but the wickedness will evaporate. And you will remove evil's dominion from the earth. Evil will no longer control what's going on the earth. This rectification of the evil in the world comes as a result of the joy of the righteous and the pious and the upright. It's joy that is the instrument by which evil is conquered. The Ramchal says this. Some of you probably will recognize the sentiment from a certain sector of the modern, or last 200 years, Jewish traditional public, and that is the Hasidic sector. Yes, we will take credit, no question about it. No, the Ramchal wasn't the Chassid, but this is a very Hasidic idea, that joy itself has a great power to improve the world and to oppose negative forces and overcome negative forces. You see this to a great extent even in practical interpersonal relations. If people disagree about something, strenuously disagree, and there's argument and debate, debate can accomplish a lot. In particular, debate can get a person to think again. Boy, I thought I had it down. I thought I knew for sure what was right. But having debated with him and seen that there's some arguments I wasn't aware of, and some facts I wasn't aware of, maybe I have to think again. It can shake a person up, and it can cause a person to reconsider. But the engine that most successfully produces a thorough change of heart and a thorough change of identification is joy. When a person who's searching or a person who's struggling sees someone else who's joyful, that has a big effect. It means that life has in it, we're not talking about a person who's taking drugs now, who's just high on alcohol. That's not why he's joyful. He's an intelligent person. He's dealing with life. He perceives life and shares in the ups and downs of life. He shares in people's tragedies, and yet he's joyful. That indicates that there's a way of relating to everything, truthfully, realistically, not hiding from anything, and still have a way of seeing the good in it and rejoicing in it. That has a very big effect on the way in which people with negative orientation develop. And I think that's part of it. This is part of everybody's common experience. Part of it is that these people, you see these great people are joyful with respect to these things, so then you are able to reconsider and change your orientation. And then, as we said, a naked will close its mouth, it'll be embarrassed to talk because it won't have any listeners. There won't be anybody listening. They much rather listen to the joyful. And wickedness will evaporate, and as I stressed, and the commentators really talk about this, we're not wishing the wicked should die. We're wishing that the wickedness should, by the way, there's a story in the Gemara, Rabbi Meir had some neighbors who caused him a lot of trouble, and they did so in ways that indicated cruelty and irresponsibility and a lack of appreciation, and he prayed that they should die. And his Rebbitzin said to him, if you read the verse correctly, you'll see that it doesn't say the wicked should die, it says the wickedness should die. And Rabbi Meir accepted that from his Rebbitzin, and he changed his prayer, and in fact they did reform. So this is the idea here, that specifically through joy that will enable to overcome the negative elements. Now, those are the three which are expressions of God's holiness. Now we come to a paragraph which is a upshot of all of that. Then you, Hashem, will reign alone over all your works. Mount Zion, the resting place of your glory. Jerusalem, your host city. As it is written, your holy writings. Hashem shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, generation, generation. Here, there's an allusion to an idea which some people find difficult. Then you will rule over the whole of the world. Does that mean that he's not ruling over the whole world now? Yeah, that's what it means. That's actually what it means. And in fact, if you look at Rashi on the Shema, I find this astonishing, but this is what Rashi says. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem who is our God, Hashem Echad, Hashem will be one in the future when the rest of the world recognizes him. And he quotes a verse. Vayomahu yiyeh, Hashem Echad u'Shmo Echad. On that day, Hashem will be one, and his name will be one. So, according to that verse, to say that Hashem is one today isn't correct. It isn't correct. He's not one today. Okay, which oneness are we talking about? Rashi is very clear, and that verse is very clear. Talking about his appreciation by the rest of mankind. And the verbiage here says, until that time, he doesn't rule. He doesn't reign singly over the whole world. And the reason for that is something we have mentioned on a couple of occasions, and that is, our sources tell us, Ein melech below am. A melech, reigning here is the word molech, to be king. The word melech in Hebrew means accepted authority. Accepted by those over whom the authority is being exercised. It's not like moshel, which means ruler. It's not like adon, which means master. These are things that you can be by force. You can just come in with an army and conquer an area. That doesn't make you melech. Melech is only when you're accepted by the population. Well, today he isn't accepted universally by the population. So in that sense, he doesn't reign over the world as melech. And that's the oneness that Rashi sees in the Shema. And at that verse that he quotes, on that day you will be one, that oneness is being one as melech, as king. That's something which is only going to be in the future. So, All of these preparations, putting your awe on the whole of the creation, and unifying, they was unified to do your will. And the Jewish people will be the leaders and teachers, and then the great among us will rejoice, and that will overwhelm all the negative elements. Then indeed you will be reigning as one over the world, because the whole world will completely accept you. But that'll only be in the future. That's what we're asking for. And the blessing closes, in part the way it does all year long. You are holy, your name is awesome. Which we don't say during the rest of the year. And there's no other God than you. As it is written, Master of legions will be lofty in judgment. The holy God will be sanctified in righteousness. Meaning that and the word for there is no other God is a word in Hebrew which indicates judgment. You are the only one who judges, and you are the holy God who judges with. Now, tzedakah can mean righteousness. It could also mean charity. It could also mean both. And here, the words tzedakah and tzedek are related, and it's a very rich concept. During the year, we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tzadkeinu b'mishpat. Mishpat is judgment, justice. Tzadkeinu. Literally, that means make us tzedek. Well, not clear exactly what that means. In some translations, they use a code word. Justify us by judgment. Justify. We're certainly not asking that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should corrupt the judgment and give us a good evaluation when we don't observe it. I'm not asking for that. Justify us, say we're good, even if we aren't good. I'm not asking for that. If you look in applied geometry in terms of construction, there's something called justifying a line. To justify a line means make sure it's straight. Make sure it's straight. You know what a level is? You have a piece of wood with a cylinder of a closed cylinder, half full of water, and you put it on a beam or something. If the water is level and it's not filled in one side, then you know it's level. That's to justify. Tzadkenu here would mean to make us straight, to make us just. Let your judgment of us and your justice with us make us straight and just. That's what we're hoping for. So here it means that he's sanctified in the process of making us straight. Now, when we come to the closing, we come to something very dramatic. Here, the closing changes. And it changes in the way in which you refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All year long you say Hakel HaKadosh, which could be translated the Holy God, or the Holy One who's strong, or the Holy One who's full of loving kindness. The name of Aleph Lamed has a number of associations, and we replace the name with a quality. HaMelech HaKadosh, the Holy King. So we're talking about a time of rulership. We're praying for a time when the rulership will be complete and consistent and unified. During the time of the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Kippur, Hashem's rulership is reinforced because we make him king. In our literature, the Hasidic literature, Rosh Hashanah is called the coronation day. We're crowning him king of the universe. We do that. So we refer to him in terms of that characteristic, which means during these 10 days, that's the characteristic that's uppermost. That's the characteristic that's manifest more than any other characteristic. And that being the case, we change our designation of him into HaMelech HaKadosh, the Holy King. Questions up to here? Okay, the next paragraph is about the holiday of Rosh Hashanah itself, and some of it is in common to other holidays. But skip over page 71. Here you have now a description of more of the content of the holiday in terms of our side. Starting in the middle of the page. I got it before this. Reign over the entire universe in your glory, which is what we asked for before, but now we're not tracing it to His Holiness. We're tracing it only to the fact of reigning. Be exalted over the world in your splendor. Exalted means praised and appreciated as such. Reveal yourself in the majestic grandeur of your strength over all dwellers of your inhabited world. Yes, strength is important. Strength is important for two reasons. One is that you want to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does run the world, does control the world, and like Rav Desta said, if something doesn't happen, it's not because he ran out of resources. It doesn't happen because he didn't want it to happen. And then you have to ask why he didn't want it to happen. Rav Desta says this, what he says, this is a very modern idea, which people have learnt partially over the last 50 years. There's more than enough of everything. There's more than enough air, more than enough of water, more than enough. Yeah, are people dying of thirst? Yeah, because some people hoard the water and don't give it over to others. Not because the world doesn't contain enough water. And the same is true with food. There's plenty of food, and there would be much, much more food if economics didn't get in the way of producing it. So, and he asked, why is it that way? Why didn't the Kodesh Baruch Hu organize the world? There's just enough to go around, and everybody has what they need. And one reason, he says, he was a Musar thinker, that if you lack something, it's not because the Kodesh Baruch Hu ran out of resources. But it's a reason why you don't have it. So, I'm sorry?
Because you don't merit to have it?
Either you don't merit to have it, or you're better off in your spiritual growth without having it because you need to be in the conditions that you're in. It doesn't have to be a punishment. It can be crafting for you the best condition of growth. Let everything that has been made know you are its maker. Number one, that should appreciate it, should be aware of it. How many of the people of the universe, of the world today, appreciate this? Let everything that has been molded understand that you are its molder. Everything with the life's breath in its nostril proclaim. Shem is the God of Israel, its king. That's what we said before. They identify him as the God of Israel. That's their link to him. They're not independently related to him. They're related to him through us. That's what it says when it calls us Mamlechas Kohanim, a nation of priests. Now the truth is the word Kohen can mean official. It doesn't mean necessarily a religious official. But it can often mean priest. And it would mean that we are the in-betweens that link the rest of the world to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the way they see him. And his kingship rules over everything, and therefore they accept it. This is only if it comes out on Shabbos. Sanctify us with your commandments and grant us your share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, satisfy us with your salvation, etc. That's similar to what you have on the other holidays. And here, I'll just mention, I did speak about this, but it was several months ago. If you look carefully throughout the Siddur, you'll see a constant theme. That when you have Torah and mitzvahs mentioned, it's always in that order. Always Torah comes first and mitzvahs come second. If you look at Shachris, you can find it at least 9 times. And it's always in that order. Here it's in the opposite order. Sanctify us by your commandments and grant us our share in your Torah. Same thing's true on Shabbos. On the holidays, that's what you have. And I'll just give you the headlines. I have a long share in this, but I'll give you the headlines of it. Putting Torah first is a matter of strategy. If you want to maximize both your study of Torah, understanding of Torah, and your performance, invest in study. Because studying has an effect on your performance. So that if you want to know practically how to be the best success, then invest first and foremost in study, because then you'll maximize both. But that's a means to ends judgment. It's a practical judgment. If you ask what the goal is, that's what this is talking about. The goal is sanctify us through your commandments. Make us holy through your commandments. The goal is holiness. The goal is not understanding of Torah. Understanding of Torah is a means to holiness. And therefore you put the goal first. Sanctify us with your commandments. And when we understand that that's the goal, understand that that's the end point, then grant us a share in Torah, because we'll do the right thing with it. We use our understanding of Torah to increase our holiness. So here you're getting a description of the goal rather than a description of the means, which I think is very appropriate when you compare the weekday, a regular weekday on the one hand, with Shabbos and holidays on the other hand. The weekdays, by definition, are days of preparation for Shabbos. They're means-oriented, not goal-oriented. And Shabbos is the goal, and holidays also participate in that idea. So here you're describing the relationship of Torah and mitzvahs in terms of the ultimate goal. The goal is this sense of Kedusha, and Torah is a means to achieving that. There's a Mishnah, I mention this because it's a pet problem of mine. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos, which says, someone who occupies himself with Torah merits many things. There's a long list of benefits for a person who occupies himself with Torah. That's the way I quote it, and I quoted it to many people, and they nod their heads. Yes, of course, that's right. And then I say to them, did you notice I quoted it wrong? I quoted it wrong. I left out a word. It says, Ha'osik b'Torah l'shma zocher l'dvarim harbe. Oh, l'shma. Right. Without the l'shma, the Mishnah is not promising you anything. Oh, what is l'shma? The Rambam says in the 10th chapter of the Laws of Tshuva, l'shma means, may avas ha'adon asher tziva came. From the love of the master who commanded this. That means in the performance of the mitzvah, you're acting out your relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're not just doing what you have to do. You're not just earning the world to come. You're not just obeying authority. You're doing it out of love. If you do it out of love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you are promised all those benefits that the Mishnah describes. But without that, not that you shouldn't do it without that, not that it's worthless. No, you're fulfilling a very important mitzvah. But the benefits that are promised in that Mishnah don't apply. So that's the idea of doing it as a relationship with the Creator. I said this a few months ago, but I'll put it in here because it's relevant. There is a literature that associates loving Hashem with performing positive mitzvos, and having awe for Hashem or fear of Hashem with refraining from violating negative mitzvos. There is such a literature. It's a fact. It bothered me for decades. If you really love Hashem, wouldn't you fulfill all of His commandments, positive and negative? If you have awe and fear for Hashem, wouldn't you fulfill all His commandments, positive and negative? I think you would. So I don't think you could split up motivation and say, love motivates you to fulfill the positive, and awe and fear motivates you to fulfill the negative. No, I don't think that's right. Each one would motivate you to do both. So the Tanya says, he raises this problem, and he says, love and love alone enable you to fulfill the mitzvah the way Hashem wants it to be fulfilled ideally, because He wants the mitzvah to be a way of connecting to Him. That's what He wants from the mitzvah. So if you do it out of love, you're doing it expressing that connection. And that means you fulfilled the mitzvah the way it was meant to be fulfilled. And if you don't do it out of love, you're doing it, you obeyed the order, you'll get reward for it, but you have not completed its purpose in the way which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. And the same is true with the negatives. He wants the negatives to be an expression, a reinforcement of Hashem's authority. And authority expresses itself most directly in setting up limitations. So the relationship is doing the mitzvah in the way that it fulfills its ideal purpose, not just doing it. That makes a connection, which is a sensible connection.
And doing the mitzvah, the way you should love is by doing it with simcha and joy. With the
Absolutely.
honor that you're doing it instead of just doing it.
Absolutely. When you're in love with someone and you have an opportunity to do something for someone, how do you feel? You feel wonderful. You feel wonderful. Able to do that for the person whom you love. It's a great, great joy in life. And of course, that's what you want to have. Okay, have a wonderful Shabbos. I will see you, Mitzvah Hashem, Sunday night for the last Q&A of the season, not the season, before Rosh Hashanah. I'll do that. In the meantime, have a wonderful Shabbos.